We head down to Miami where Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com joins us now. And Olin, I know that, it was only week one, but just numbers-wise, A&M's offense did not do that against an FBS opponent all of last year. So that alone should create way more optimism than maybe even people thought going into this year for that offense.
Well, you're right. A&M scored more points offensively in the first half than they did in any game last year. So that's progress. And I think there was a lot of cautious optimism anyway because, again, A&M had so many injuries, B, so many young guys, C, played so many close games that you felt like there was a good chance that they would make a step forward. And then you bring in Bobby Petrino, and there was no question that he was calling the plays, but he called them well. And, guys like who were freshmen are now sophomores, guys like Connor Wigman, Evan Stewart, Noah Thomas, those guys played really well. And, it's right. You could say, well, it's just New Mexico, and that's true. But last year it was just Sam Houston, and it was just UMass, and it was just Appalachian State. So I think after that opening performance, there's still reason for cautious optimism.
So this week they head down to Miami. That's a team that is in a different part of a rebuild than maybe some of the other rebuilding teams. They're in year two under Mario Cristobal. They had a nice showing last week against Miami, Ohio. Again, kind of the same thing as A&M. I think the biggest question, Olin, that remains to be seen for this one is A&M's been recruiting with Jimbo Fisher, these guys, for a few years now. The kind of athletes that people think can eventually win the SEC if they get everything right. Miami has not been doing that for very long. Now the transfer portal helps you shorten that window a little bit, but do you think this Miami team is going to be able to go athlete for athlete with A&M?
Not athlete from athlete, but I think they're certainly good enough to beat A&M. I mean, last year's game was a touchdown difference. A&M won by 8, I think it was, 17-9. They brought in a center who is highly regarded from Central Florida. They brought in a guard from Alabama. They've got a 5-star, maybe the number one tackle prospect in the last recruiting class, if not number one, number two, to both of the offensive line where they felt like they needed help the most. So I know that by listening and reading the Miami media, they feel like being able to run the football against A&M is a big key for them to win. And they have that optimism based, primarily on the guys they brought in from the transfer portal. So, to your point in question, yeah, you don't have to wait as long to rebuild as you used to if you can score big in the transfer portal, and Miami did very well.
Would you say there's not a full culture reset, but a little miniature culture reset this year for this team? And that they had to do, given they brought in a lot of big-time freshmen in that class. It was very highly touted, but then they had to send a lot of them almost immediately right out the door. Those things have happened. Is there a Control-Alt-Delete, for lack of a better term, going on with A&M, at least in the locker room culturally, making sure everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of, or at least they think there's some addition by subtraction. Look, there's no doubt that a guy like Chris Marshall is a very talented player. But sometimes you wonder if the off-field antics, are worth the talent. And you saw he transferred to Ole Miss and then was dismissed at Ole Miss a couple of months later, right? Smoke Bowie, he wasn't a problem here, but he decided to go back home to Georgia. And, he's been dismissed from the team there. So, I think the issues, Denver Harris left. He's at LSU, and he got suspended for one game already. But he's going to be back. And gosh, after that opening, they need some help in the secondary. But so I think that there were some guys that may have been more about what the team can do for me than what I can do for the team. I don't think that's limited to Texas A&M, though. I think it's just Texas A&M's recruiting class was so celebrated that it gets magnified. But I do think there's by talking to the players and some coaches, I think there is a different attitude and the feeling that everybody's on the same page and working toward a common goal rather than out for their own thing. I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to have to suspend any players for sneaking out the hotel and going down to parties at Prairie View or vaping in their uniforms in the locker room on the road. I don't think they're going to have those issues anymore.
I mean, and the thing is when you say it out loud, it just sounds even more ridiculous of what you're doing as an athlete. And like everybody has these problems, like you said. Like it's like every college football program essentially is going to catch a rash of this. It just depends on how bad that rash spreads season to season, right?
Right, and it was pretty bad last year at A&M. At Georgia, every time they go on a drive, they're afraid they're going to get pulled over.
Yeah,
they got to slow down the offense. Everybody has their issues, but A&M's, of course, were magnified last year. Because the recruiting class was so celebrated, and then B, because you just mentioned how ridiculous some of the issues were. So when you have some guys that are involved in some of the things that we're involved with, and some of them were involved in multiple incidents, same guys, you're probably better off, no matter how talented they are, letting them go somewhere else and trying to get their act together somewhere else. Which, by the way, I hope all those guys do. You don't want to write a guy off for doing some stupid things when he's 18 and 19 years old.
Yes. We're all varying degrees of stupid, like when we're that age, right? I mean, like,
right.
Even the smartest ones are, we're all still kind of stupid at that time in our life. Connor Wigman showed some flashes last year, obviously, of what he could be, a very highly recruited player anyway. This whole offseason with Bobby Petrino I know that there was a quarterback competition because that's what Jimbo has always done, but he's been the guy since the end of last year. They didn't really have that so much going in with Haynes King even a year ago because they were a little bit worried about his health, and that kind of proved that again, and they went through it. How much difference does that make it that they have known that Connor is the guy from the time the season ended last year, more or less?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said that you can have a little more confidence. Look, for years there was a lot of hope on based on Haynes King coming from what we were told, because let's face it, we didn't see him play that much. But with Connor, you've seen it. You've seen him start his very first college game and throw 4 touchdown passes against Ole Miss. You've seen play really well, even though he didn't have to throw a lot in that win over LSU. And he had 2 touchdown passes in those games, and he was very poised and very accurate. And then he comes back and he opens his first game this year and he throws 5 touchdown passes. So you've seen him play well. So it's just now a matter, is he good? Yes. How good? And can he get better every week like you hope he does? And if he progresses, I think he could be a very, the feeling here among a lot of people is that that potentially, and that's such a dangerous word, but potentially he's A&M's best quarterback since Johnny Manziel. And admittedly, that's setting the bar, kind of low, because there hasn't been a lot of great quarterback play. Kellen Mond had one really, really good year. He was a solid career, but one really, really good year. And Trevor Knight came down here for a year and was really good. But other than that, the quarterback play has been spotty. But there's a lot of expectations about Connor, and some of that's based on the potential to be brought here, but a lot of it's based on what you've actually seen him do.
How much of a test? I mean, last week, again, it's New Mexico, so the defense didn't really have to hit on all cylinders, but they brought in, that's one of the areas on defense. They brought in Tony Grimes, and where Jimbo got into the transfer portal a little deeper than he has before over there on that side of the ball. Is this this is their first real test, though, right? Of how much is that helped it, and because they have a lot of stud recruits over there, but adding those transfers in to see them gel for DJ Durkin, this is the first one, right?
Yeah, I think this is the first big test for DJ. Look, last week, we all know it was an open book test, and they passed it, but you're supposed to pass an open book test, even though they failed some of the last year. So, look, A&M, first of all, was one of the worst teams in the country against the run last year. They limited New Mexico to 91 yards. I think it was on 33 carries, and 27 of those came in on one carry with third stringers out on the field. But again, it's New Mexico. Now you got Miami that we talked about before. They fortified their offensive line through the transfer portal. They think they can run on anybody. Maybe they can. They've got Henry Parrish that they brought in from Ole Miss last year. So he played for Miami against A&M last year. And he's a guy that can, go 80 yards if you're not careful. I think he had a 60, maybe a 40 or 60-yard run against A&M when he was at Ole Miss. And they had a big-time freshman kid that they're really excited about, big, powerful guy. So I know, like I said, reading and hearing what the media here is saying, they feel like the key for Miami is their ability or whatever success they have running the football, and they think they can do it. And A&M looked really good against the run last week. So what? It was in Mexico. But, they weren't bad last year against LSU. Again, they were playing with a whole bunch of freshman starters last year, and those guys, they're playing in a grown man league as 18-year-olds, and maybe some of them had just turned 19. But now they've got a full year of experience, a full year of growth behind them, weight training and all those things that we all see guys make a big jump. Walter Nolan actually lost weight. He's down to for like 320 to 290 and really quick and looks good. So are they going to be better in their first big test? We'll see.
Olin, just your thoughts on Texas and Alabama as an outside observer to this.
I watched the game last year, and I thought Texas might have gotten hosed on a play that looked like it might have been a safety, and then it still came down to a field goal, right, in the last 10 seconds.
Yeah,
and that was with Bryce Young and with Will Anderson and a lot of other guys. So I don't see any reason to think it's going to be not going to be a real close, hard-fought battle again. I think, and I'm not around Alabama all the time, but I think if you look at Alabama and you're looking for a reason to be concerned about that team beyond quarterback, I think you might look at the secondary and what do you know? Texas, just strength of their team may be the receivers. So that, that's a matchup that may be favoring Texas. And I think Ewers was throwing the ball pretty well against them last year before he got hurt. So I think Alabama will win. I think it's hard to win in Tuscaloosa, even though the Aggies have done it. It's been a long time, and they almost did it last year, but, almost doesn't cut it. So I think Alabama will win, but I'm thinking that I'd be surprised if it's not a close game. I'll put it that way.
All right, Olin, enjoy Miami. Make sure Nuno takes you. You tell Nuno to take you to nice places, okay?
Well, he knows his way around. There's no doubt about it. That's the advantage of being Miami with a native Cuban.
Yes, absolutely. You tell Nuno, he's not. I don't want him to save money. Like, this place is good, but this place is cheaper. Nuno needs to treat you right, Olin. Okay. Yeah.
Well, Lucci's paying for that. So
okay.
I'm sure Nuno will have absolutely no conscience when it comes to what we're going to spend.
All right, Olin, enjoy. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. For